Hello, my friends. I'm going to talk about a couple different things today, and it all correlates with the last several videos that the Lord has had me put out over the last couple of weeks. Not so much the last one, but the ones before those. They're kind of like a foundation to understanding what I'm going to say in this one. And none of these things that I'm saying are hidden from you. It just so happens that the Lord put me in a position that whenever He's called me to understand Him to be able to help another, that I'm there. But none of these things are hidden from you. They're not hidden from anybody. You're not going to find them in the wilderness or in the inner chambers of some temple. You're going to find them in your heart by your walk with God. All that I've had the ability to do is to walk with Him now for a period of 7 years and be better at understanding what He's saying to me. And this is how all of the children will walk right now that the Spirit is poured out. We will all learn to recognize that voice of God. But in the beginning, we really don't know what it's talking about, much like the apostles. But after a while, after you keep walking with Him, you'll get better at learning what He's saying and then how to say that so that other people can recognize what He's saying through you, even being a fallible individual. The church is fallible. Remember, she was to be the complement of Jesus. Jesus was the lowliest. The church was also to be the lowliest until they both rise as king and queen, an event that is most assuredly coming and coming very soon for us, as everything Jesus spoke about to look for, we can see it in the world. Now, the first topic with this, and I'll give you a couple of scriptures that the fallen church has twisted so that people can't understand them. And these are also scriptures that whenever you listen to those who you will listen to speak, if they say these things, you can know that they have not understood what the Lord has said. It doesn't mean that they don't know the Lord, because years ago I used to do these same things. I used to not know exactly how to say this even up until recently. So it might not mean that the person you're listening to doesn't know the Lord, but at minimum they don't know what He's saying, because it's very easy to recognize once you can see it. So what does it mean that no one knows the day or the hour? And this is just from some random article I picked up, and this is what everybody will talk about whenever they're setting dates for the return of Jesus Christ for prophecy. They will give you feast dates of return to Jewish feast days nonetheless, so they will go back to the old wine skin and pour new wine into it. They'll give you feast days that He's coming back in. They'll also give you events that are happening in the world, such as this comet that is still now passing past us with the tail of it coming around. I've been given a period of 21 to 22 years seeing a specific judgment come to America, some form of destruction. We're in that time frame. This is similar to how I can see this comet sign and recognize as the bride that I'm already engaged and I need to be ready every single day for the Lord to come and take me away at midnight. So I'm prepared. I'm dressed at that midnight hour so that when He comes, I'm ready to go. The foolish church does not do this. They just continue on buying and selling lies to each other, and they walk in a circle of a reprobate mind, none of them having surpassed the knowledge and understanding that the Pharisees did, because they don't know Him. So what does it mean then, no one knows the day or the hour? Whenever you think about Jesus and all of the examples that He used, how they were logical and how they made sense and how He related everything in the world that a human being can understand to His examples of what He's saying. He says that the Son doesn't know, only the Father knows. Okay, so we have a bride of Christ, such as the church, not the fallen one, the real church, the real Israel. She is not going to understand when God is coming back, when Jesus returns, when the husband returns to claim her. She's not going to understand that, because Jesus says clearly it's not for the Son to know. Deduction you can get from that, then it's also not for the church to know. It's just for her to be prepared and to be ready, which is also all throughout the scriptures of what she is supposed to do. So the church isn't going to know. So then who is going to know? The bride doesn't know. The church, who is the bride, she doesn't know. Who would? Well, the Father knows, which is why Jesus, who is God, he is the Father, he separated himself into showing two different qualities to understand the end. One, the church isn't going to know exactly when he's coming for her, she's to be prepared, but the second, that he is also acting as a father. He's acting as a parent. So the bride, she knows when she's engaged to be married, and she knows when about to expect her husband to come get her. She could say, well, it's supposed to be beautiful this Saturday night. He might come back then. So she gets excited for him. Or it's my birthday next Tuesday. I think he might be coming back then. I don't know, but I'm hoping. That's what the bride does. She hopes upon his return on those days, but she doesn't know, so she continues to get dressed. But a parent is much different than that. A child, I like to use the movie Pet Sematary for this because it was an amazing visual of this exact event that I'll describe. A child chasing after a kite. He's heading towards the highway. And the child has no idea of this semi-truck that's barreling down through the road heading towards him on that highway. The child is playing with their kite. They have no idea what's going on there. They have no idea of the danger around them. But the father, the parent, if they're a good parent, not like the dad in Pet Sematary, although it wasn't entirely his fault either in the movie, but that's beside the point. A good parent knows that their child is walking around in a pit of wolves, and everything in the world is out to get them, the same as it is you. So a parent will look after a child and see danger around them that they cannot see. And when a parent recognizes that danger and that their child is about ready to fall into the snare of it, they will quickly snatch them away from that danger, even though the child is oblivious to it. The father knows, the parent knows when that form of danger comes. And since the very beginning with me, even when I did not understand at all what the Lord was trying to tell me, I recognized that disaster, sudden destruction, comes at the day of departure. And that sudden destruction that comes, the children in the world are not going to be aware of that sudden destruction until it comes upon them. But before it can get to them, like the father will snatch the child away from that road before the child goes out on the road to get hit by the truck, the parent will rapture them off of that path before they get to that road and get hit. So the father knows when that moment of destruction comes that he must swoop down into action, such as the days of Noah, such as the days of Lot. So the father knows, but the child doesn't know. And what are we? What does Jesus call us repeatedly? We're the bride and we're the children. So is the bride or the children aware of when he's coming back according to his own words? No. We're not going to know that exact moment. We're just to be ready for it. And we know we're in the time frame for it. So that's why all of us right now who know the Lord will be ready for it. We will not need to go out buying and selling somebody else's lies. We are ready for it in our hearts. We're expecting it to come. We're hoping for it to come. And we will be dressed on the day that it does. But no one will know that exact period of time until it comes. And then you'll get the lying prophets, or at least the prophets that'll tell you that they know the Lord. And maybe they do. They just don't know what he's saying. They will all say, well, the Lord does nothing until he gives his plans to his servants, the prophets. And he did. He straight up told you. He's given the prophets that plan. He said, you're not going to know whenever I'm going to come back. He already gave them that message. And I give that same message to you here. We don't know. He's not going to put on that added anxiety of waiting for this day to come, because it will add on anxiety if you're thinking about certain dates. That's exactly what happens. Jesus is meant to simplify life, not complicate it. So we're not going to understand that moment until it comes and the harvesters, the angels, come down and gather us. Very easy to recognize whenever you break it down into what Jesus actually meant. And you can clearly see it as day from the scriptures. That's exactly what he's talking about. Now, let's move on then into something else here. So we're not going to know the exact time that Jesus comes. Anybody that says that they know the exact time that Jesus comes for certain, they are a liar. They do not know. And they might not be lying intentionally, but they're lying, doing harm, regardless of whether they're doing it intentionally or not, because they don't know what the Lord is actually saying to them. Now, the other thing that I'm going to speak about, and I spoke about how you get all these groups of people out there that'll tell you don't got to do nothing to get to heaven. You don't got to do nothing at all. No works for man. All right, and I've said in the last videos, they are correct with that form of doctrine, but I'll show you where they're completely incorrect of their understanding of it. You don't have to do anything. You will come as you are in your current state, no matter what your sin, no matter what your failures, what your faults are. You will come exactly as you are and stand before the Lord, and you will call out to Him, and He will hear you, because you're looking at Him as you look at yourself, and you realize how far you've fallen, and He will accept you no matter what your state is at that point in time. You don't got to do nothing for the Lord to accept you in that moment. But here's where they will get wrong, and it's because none of them are born again. They don't recognize or see what I'm talking about here, and they'll hate me for it, and they'll call it works when it's not. Jesus says that His yoke is easy and His burden is light. He doesn't say that He has no yoke and no burden. He says that it's easy and light, because it is. But let me tell you why it's hard for them. Because that means they have to give up everything that they were walking in the world, all the love and praise of others by the lies that they speak to each other, all their comfort groups that they call churches, all their doctrines that were passed to them by their ancestors. They have to give all of that away and follow Jesus. Which, what does that bring upon you? It brings upon you the yoke of the world. It strangles you, because once you follow Jesus, you are hated by the world, and they can't take that. They can't deal with that loss. That's one reason. And burden. The burden is light. It's not no burden, but it's light. Because again, everything relating to the world that you had known your whole life prior to following God, all of that has to go away, and you follow Him. And for us, we're living our normal lives. He's talking through us through a language that we can understand without inconveniencing us. We go about our daily lives just as the rest of the world does, but we're following Him as we go along our daily lives. So thus what the world hears is different than what the children hear. But it is still a burden. You have to accept the fact that now the whole world hates you and is against you. And even those who are supposedly for you, those who claim to know the Lord, even they will turn against you because you speak truth, and their ears don't want that. They don't accept that. So His yoke is easy and His burden is light. But it's not no yoke and no burden. There is something you have to give up. It's the world. Do you remember whenever Jesus said, "You must eat my body and drink my blood," and many left who were following Him? That's what Jesus spoke of whenever He said that. Wasn't that they needed to, devour His arm and start munching down on Him like a cannibal. That's not what He was talking about, obviously. But He was saying that in order to follow me, you must follow only me. I am the only way, and you will lose your whole world that you had by following me. All that love and praise that everyone would heap on you, you're going to lose them by following me. And truly, that's a teaching too hard for most, because they're in their comfort zone. They're in their blindness, their reprobate mind that God has put over them, a form of blindness until everything be completed, so that they don't follow Him, and that they talk each other out of following Him because it's too hard. We don't want to give up the world. We shouldn't have to, right? The world is good, yet it's a poison bathtub. So why did God so love the world that He sent Jesus into it to save it? Because this world was once not fallen. In the very beginning, it was the beautiful paradise that God created, but then it fell. Death was introduced into it. And thank God He sent His reconciliation to bring back those days for those who love Him. The rapture that is coming, as the church calls it, the Passover event, it is a reward for knowing Him. There's hardly any yoke, hardly any burden. The only one you have is to know Him. Get to know Him, just like a future husband gets to know a future wife. Just like a parent gets to know a child exactly as they are, you can come to get to know him. That's a very easy yoke, very easy burden, but truly the world cannot accept this. This whole fallen church cannot accept this. And they talk each other out of it with their lies. So anyone that tells you, hey, the rapture is on this date, they either don't know the Lord or they're intentionally deceiving you. Because we're not going to know that. Clearly laid out. He did give his message to his servants, the prophets. He told us we're not going to know. That means we're not going to know. And you can't go on a path, well, that's about the second coming. That's about this, that's about that. You're overcomplicating everything he said. He came to give his life for those living at the end do not have to taste death whenever he returns. That's all you need to know. It's not about a second coming. It's not about a rapture. It is about right here and now, because that's all that we have to understand. Why are we worried about a second coming if the rapture is right now? So it makes no sense for Jesus to break down one coming versus another whenever the most important one is right now. That's clearly what he was talking about, the visitation. I liken this to somebody that is walking over a bridge. And underneath, right in the middle of that bridge, is a gigantic fire. And you can just see that bridge cracking right under their feet. Somebody that's about to walk over that bridge, are you going to yell out to them, hey, I think your airbag isn't working in your car. You better get that fixed or you're going to get hurt? Or are you going to just take them and quickly pull them off of that bridge? Because clearly one thing is more important than the other concerning your safety. That's how Jesus worked. He worked in the here and now, what's important to me now. Not so much what's important to me in the future if we don't make it past now. And that's why I say this today. He's coming. Everything he said has happened and is happening. The bride knows when to be ready, and she's preparing right now. Every single day she's prepared for him because she knows he's coming. She's not going to be found in bed with other men because she's loyal to him. She walks with him. Giving up the world is not too great of a burden for her to put on, just like her master did it. And like the little child who is right in the face of danger, the parent will swoop in and gather that child before that danger gets to them, even though the child is unaware of when that danger is coming. That is Artes. That is the time point in life. But you have all of this doctrine that came from Catholicism, which became Christianity to the whole world. All of that doctrine that was already fallen 1,800 years ago, imagine how much more fallen it is today. And we don't need to imagine, we can, we see it. And they take all of those same doctrines that then went to Protestants, who was from the same tree. A bad tree cannot produce a good fruit, so you know already it's a bad tree. So why does a Protestant think they're going to produce a good fruit? Well, it's because they don't know Jesus. They don't recognize the doctrine, the gospel that they're following is not the apostles' gospel and doctrine. It's already long fallen away. But they're too proud. The burden is too great. The yoke is too heavy for them to drop down and call out to Lord and say, Lord, I am a sinner. I don't know you. Come and show yourself to me. They're too proud and they have too many things in the world, too much investment for them to do that. Because it means they got to give all of that up. And then everybody will leave them just as they've left me. But you will find one or two here and there that will stand with you and recognize that you speak truth. And quality is much more important to God than quantity. But somebody who's making money off of God doesn't care about quality. They care about how many people they can make money from. Somebody that loves the praise of men more than the praise of God doesn't care about, little praise. They want lots of praise. So heap it on me. Let me bring in anybody I can. The whole mindset is completely different from the fallen doctrines versus what Jesus actually spoke of. So they'll tell you, oh yeah, well, here is this Jewish rabbi. Here's Israel. They're clearly God's people, and he's raised them up. While they sit and deny the Messiah, you're to reject that. As Jesus told us, anybody who comes with a different gospel, you reject. But they will accept them because of the lust of their physical eyes. Or they'll say, well, I have the right way, it's through this Calvinist doctrine. Or I have the right way, it's through this Adventist doctrine. Or I have the right way, it's through this, it's through that. And every single one of them don't realize the plank that sits in their own eye. So how are they going to remove the speck from their brother when they have a plank in their own? This is the days that we live in. Prepare. He's coming. Don't be afraid of it. Stand before him naked and unashamed because he loves you. He took your guilt from you. And let no one deceive you that you need to do anything different to come to him, because he will accept you exactly as you are. But once you stand before him and he accepts you, you then become engaged. Do not then go chasing after all these other gods that the rest do, because then you too will fall away, because the burden was too great, the yoke was too great, too heavy, and you left whenever he said that you must eat my body and drink my blood. That was too much for them. Don't let that be too much for you. You can remain single and focused on the Lord, as long as you don't fall into all of the other deceptions and traps that Satan has laid out to snare you. This is the test before he comes, all of those who will follow him and him alone. He's looking for a pure bride, not one who goes and does whatever she pleases and sleeps with other gods. He's looking for the one who stays true to him. And believe me, just as you are, you have the ability to come to him naked and call out to him and be accepted no matter what you have done in your life. And then once you learn his voice, you will follow his voice. Then you will begin to understand what he says. And you'll watch your entire world be transformed in front of you. Not by men, but by God. God bless.